speaking of Moms Rising, we have a powerhouse with us today, Lauren Hipp of Moms Rising. I'm so excited about this conversation, you all. Welcome, Lauren.
Hi, Kristen. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited that you're here because you are one of the many people who organized the 8 million people to turn out for No Kings. And I'm wondering if you can share, A, are you happy with the turnout? B, what does it mean when people march? Sometimes people say, marching doesn't matter. We happen to know different. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I am so impressed. I'm not surprised. But every time that we have done these marches, they have just steadily grown, which tells us that we are going to win, right? We have the numbers, the people have the power. And every time we come out, we bring more people with us and we're expanding our movement. And it is so incredibly important that we show up for these marches because it tells in a very important narrative and it tells the story of the power of the people and where the people are at. And they've had enough. Right? They want to protect democracy. We do not believe in kings. We do not have kings in this country, and we show up for each other. And we have seen that repeatedly happening on the ground across the country, places like Minnesota, right? Everywhere across the country, New York, California. We are showing up for our neighbors, showing up for ourselves. And every time we come out to march, we continue to do more things. We bring in more people and we continue to activate, whether it is on the street corner, right, at our PTA meeting, or if it's in a mutual aid effort, if it's signing petitions, if it's talking to your member of Congress, people are doing things. And the more that we bring them in and we see that visually happening on the streets, it sends a very powerful message. So we have to keep showing up. It's an important tool that we have in protecting our democracy.
One of the common chants that is so true and speaks to what you're saying is, this is what democracy looks like. You know, somebody says, tell me what democracy looks like. Everybody yells back, this is what democracy looks like. It's actually true. Democracy is not a spectator sport, which is also a bumper sticker slogan, I might add, but it truly isn't a spectator sport. It takes all of us engaging in the ways that we have time to engage to make it be a vibrant, representative, experience for our country. And yet, right now, democracy is under direct attack, which is why these marchers are called No Kings. We do not have kings in America. No, thank you. We don't want them. Go away. And one of the ways that democracy is under attack is through a series of voter suppression laws. So we had executive action related to mail-in ballots from Donald Trump that was ridiculous and likely illegal. We had also the proposed SAVE Act, which Donald Trump is saying he wants to have happen more than any other piece of legislation. Cliff notes, Donald Trump knows he's going to lose the midterm for the people who are supporting him because the policies that he is pushing are so unpopular with Democrats, Republicans, independents, Green parties, libertarian, etc. When you think about the SAVE Act and our members at Moms Rising, what are your thoughts, Lauren?
It's incredibly unpopular, right? If you talk to any woman, any mom, any person who has a stake in this democracy and you talk to them about what is in this bill, it is incredibly clear that this is anti-voter. We have had moms and parents and families come out in droves. We had a petition that had over 20,000 signatures. We've driven thousands of calls into Congress telling them that they need to reject this anti-voter measure. The components of this bill are incredibly egregious and a direct attack on democracy, and very specifically an attack on the very rights to vote for very specific populations that Trump and the Republican Party are scared of. This is attacking women, right? Married women who change their names. This is attacking communities of color. We need to be talking about these things, and we need to be talking about them out loud and in very specifics in terms of what they are doing, because they have created this pattern, right? Trump passed that executive order restricting mail-in voting, which we know expands the electorate and makes voting much more accessible to people. They have the SAVE Act that he's throwing down on and begging the Senate to pass. And so far, the Senate has heard loud and clear from constituents in every part of this country that this is not what they want. This is not what they sent people to Congress to be doing. And they have not been successful, right? They've not been able to put it into any vehicle he's asked them to do. They've not been able to pass it. And I think that really speaks to the power of the people and where everyday Americans are at. This is not what they want to be addressed. They need to be addressing the affordability crisis. Moms and parents are worrying about how they put food on the table. a roof over their kids' heads, how they're going to afford childcare and healthcare. We don't need to be messing around and taking away people's right to vote. This is not the business we should be in. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio is closing down places where people can go and access the important documents that you would need to be able to prove your right to vote. So they were trying to restrict us in every possible way in exercising our right to vote and to protect our democracy.
And listeners and audience, I know Lauren knows this, so I'm just saying it out loud. There is no evidence of mass voter fraud at all, and it is already illegal to vote if you are a non-citizen. There are already many checks and balances in place to even voting. I live in Washington State. I have a mail-in ballot. One time, my ballot didn't count because my current signature didn't match my existing signature on file with the Secretary of State. They called me up. They're like, Kristen, what's going on? Your signature has changed. And I was like, hello, I am the same person. But it is not a situation where we have inadequate rules, regulations, or checking. I mean, there's checking happening, there's rules happening. It is ridiculous. And so basically it's like a poll tax. So like many people would need a passport to be able to vote, and that costs a couple $100 and a lot of time. And as Lauren said, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, is restricting where you can get passports. And so how are you supposed to do this? I do not know. I had one friend trying to get all the documents in place because they were anticipating this happening. It has taken weeks and weeks and weeks to get the documents through. Like you get the first document, it still isn't the right one. You have to go back again. You're waiting in line in person. What? No. We are the United States of America. We are a democracy, and we demand that we stay a democracy. And that means calling your U.S. Senator and tell them to vote no on the SAVE Act. We are also talking about a president who is oddly out of touch. I mean, I am almost not surprised by how out of touch he is, but then he does something and I'm like, oh my goodness, did you see that moment? That was so out of touch. Recently, President Trump said some pretty ridiculous, made my jaw drop, things about childcare. And I'm wondering, Lauren, if you can frame that for us. What just happened with his childcare statement and why is it so out of touch?
You know, it's hard to understand some of the things that come out of his mouth, but I think he just said the quiet part out loud for his administration and what they're aiming to do. But he said basically that we don't have enough to deal with, he called it daycare, childcare, Medicaid, Medicare, because we have a war going on and that we have 50 states and they should be the ones to deal with things like childcare. And that just shows how incredibly out of touch he is, not only with the affordability crisis that is happening for families, but also how state budgets work. These massive systems that we're contending with should be human rights. They should be part of basic access to ensure that people have the foundations in order to have thriving lives, right? Access to universal childcare, access to healthcare. Those are very basics. And he's saying that that should be relegated to the states. Well, guess what? We are a United States of America with 50 states, and it shouldn't matter where you live within the United States. You should have access to those things no matter where you are. And these are big problems to solve. And it takes our federal government coming together to offer those big solutions that states can see themselves in. And it is pretty ludicrous for him to say out loud that we are going to be prioritizing a foreign unauthorized war over addressing the needs of our citizens. People who are saying every single day, bearing their heart and soul, saying, I cannot afford the childcare, the healthcare, the food for my family. Meanwhile, he is building a ballroom and waging wars that Americans have no interest in.
I mean, so true, so true. And the salience of childcare and the crisis of childcare has been shown time and time again. In red state, in blue state, in purple state. We just saw, you all, breaking news, West Virginia, yes, they have a Republican House and a Republican Senate, just passed a really strong child care bill. We've seen child care bills passed all over the country. We just saw Mandami, the New York mayor, run on child care. He doesn't even have kids. Why is he running on child care? Because when he was at the doors, doorbelling, speaking to his future constituents, it came up time and time again as part of the affordability crisis. We have a child care crisis in America. Anybody who's listening would know it. Yet our president, Donald Trump, I would like to say our current president, Donald Trump, is totally out of touch. So, what can people do and should they do right now? We know that we should call our members of Congress and tell them, please vote no on the SAVE Act. What should they be doing on childcare?
They should absolutely also be calling their members of Congress to say, get back to the work of the people, address the affordability crisis, and pass universal child care in a way that ensures that all families will have access. We do not currently have a great answer in Congress, and we need from the Republicans, and we need leaders to step up and to solve this problem for families. We need to ensure that families have access to high quality, affordable childcare. And we know that at the local level, this is being pushed. The pressure is on the federal government to answer because states and local communities are saying, this is what we are hearing for people, and we are going to do the best that we can. And the federal government also needs to step up and do the same.
And the federal government, you all, I know you all know this, but it's funded by our taxpayer dollars. So when we are paying our federal taxes, it has long been known that the priorities of the people in the United States of America are a healthy economy, access to healthcare, and also childcare, which is part of a healthy economy. And so when we see those funds taken out of the programs that Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party, everybody supports, healthcare, childcare, access to healthy food, and put into $1 billion a day in a war that Congress did not authorize, that is Trump's pet project, we get mad. We get mad. We get outraged. And our voices are needed. And we just have about a minute and a half left. And Lauren, sometimes people right now, especially, are feeling a little cynical, feeling like their voice doesn't matter. Can you just share about how you've seen in real life evidence of people's voices mattering?
Absolutely. Every time members of Congress hear the real story of someone, what it means to struggle to find access to childcare, it changes how they're able to see the issue and how they prioritize it. And the more of us who speak up and are brave and recognize that this is a systemic problem, not a personal failing that you can't find childcare, the more pressure there is and the more goodwill there is amongst people. They're people too, and stories matter to them. And hearing how that impacts you does help move the needle. And so join us. We'd love to have you. And thank you for being vulnerable and brave and sharing your stories. It matters so much.
It really does matter. And we have worked with our members to have our members share their stories on congressional panels and congressional testimony with the media, local, state, and federal. And it really shifts and shapes the narrative. So as we're working together, we're all together working in a leaderful movement to both shift the narrative, to give a reality check about what's happening with American families, and to move legislation that helps all of us thrive. So thank you so much, Lauren, for all that you do to really, I'm going to call it help save America, because America is in some deep trouble with a malignant Cheeto at the helm. And it's the persistence of leaders like you that don't give up in the face of some really awful stuff and really depressing stuff to keep pushing for a better tomorrow that's going to bring us up and out of this crisis. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.